Hey everyone, welcome to the Good E-Reader Radio Show. My name is Michael, and today we're going to talk about how in 2018 e-readers are taking a step back from what happened in 2017. Also take a look at the smartphone market, tablets, and two-in-ones, and how this plays into e-readers. So basically last year was an awesome year for e-readers. Onyx Boox Note was a huge success for the company. Their 10.3-inch digital note-taking device slash writing slate was the first serious competitor to the Remarkable, and both of those devices were released in 2017 for the most part, and they really upped the game in terms of doing really something new with e-paper. They sort of pulled a page out of Sony's book, except they did something that was a little bit of a lower cost. And kind of feel like in 2017, the Kindle Oasis 2 came out. First e-reader really that had an audiobook store built into it. So Audible, you can plug in wireless speakers, Bluetooth headset. You can listen to audiobooks as you're reading, or you can follow along with the text. A lot of use case scenarios. You could just sit in a park and have a wireless speaker and listen to an audiobook. There's ensemble productions with Lord of the Rings, where there's 100 people doing different voices and music. I mean, it's pretty compelling. Kobo Aura 1 limited edition came out. Not much too different from the original Kobo Aura 1 that came out a few years before that, except it had way more memory, which was kind of cool in a world that fewer and fewer e-readers have SD cards. Having more internal memory on an e-reader is pretty critical. In 2018, not a lot of new things happened. Kobo Clara HD came out, and we all thought, hey, Kobo launched an audiobook store in 2017. They want to get into Walmart, maybe a really kind of low-cost 5-inch e-reader with Bluetooth capabilities and the Kobo audiobook store built into it. No-brainer. Kobo will sell millions of these. Well, they didn't do a 5-inch. They did a 6-inch. They didn't really do anything interesting other than Comfortlight, and the Comfortlight's pretty uneven. Onyx Boox released the Note S, and this is a 9.7-inch e-reader. It's basically a smaller, stripped-down version of the Note, the 10.3 that sold a ton of copies last year. Onyx hoped to replicate this situation, so they would have something that was $200 cheaper. No brainer. 9.7, way to go. Sony this year also released the digital paper DPT CP1. All of Sony's e-readers in the past, for their professional line of PDF readers, digital note takers, PDF editors, and so on. They did their first 10.3 this year, and they reduced the costs accordingly. Neither Sony nor Onyx has really seen any financial windfall. Going forward for the rest of 2018, there's really not a lot of new things coming out. I heard Icarus isn't making any e-readers. Energy System, the Spanish company that did a few nice e-readers in the past, they told me that they're getting out of the e-reader business and they're not longer making any more. Amazon is rumored to release a new basic and paperwhite this year. It'd be interesting, but they'll probably be the same as the Oasis, built-in audiobook store. Using a little bit more modern e-reader tech, but nothing will really fundamentally change. Tolino, that's sort of the one unknown. They haven't really said which way they're going about, releasing a new device, but I do know that Artitech, the Polish company, they're releasing a 10.3-inch e-reader. But if you look at what happened last year versus this year, we're almost taking a step back. Larger screen e-readers still have no front light. Kobo's e-readers this year, compared to what they did last year, step back. Almost like all of the Onyx e-readers that they plan on releasing this year, they have 3 in the pipeline. Nothing is very compelling. It's a step back from the success of the Note last year, and that's a crying shame, because for the last few years, e-readers are enjoying a resurgence in sales, and there's some good models that are actually coming out, like the Kindle Oasis 2, probably the best e-reader in a few years in terms of form and function, and Amazon refining on what went wrong with the original Oasis with the built-in case and all that type of stuff. They did some really kind of cool things with it that nobody else really did, and Barnes and Noble, no plans for e-readers this year. The new Light 3, like the Plus, it's a not bad e-reader. But yeah, really not a lot happening with e-readers this year. Fundamentally, no one's really using the IMX7 dual core processors other than the Oasis 2. So this is Freescale's dual core processor that they announced in 2016, started mass production. Okay, so they did it a year before 2016, but it had mass production in 2016, and it was in 2017 that we actually saw a product. And I don't think that this will be in any other e-readers, flagship or otherwise, which is a crying shame because the vast majority of e-readers are using the IMX6, the Solo Light, the 1 gigahertz processor. That came out in 2011, boys. E-Encarta, which is the only kind of state-of-the-art e-paper, came out like 3 or 4 years ago. E-Ink really isn't doing anything new on the e-reader space. There's really no crazy, PPI machines that are coming out. Plastic Logic demoed like a 500 PPI e-paper screen. Japan Display did like a 5 or 600 e-paper display, but they're prototypes. We're not going to see that for a super long time. And in terms of e-reader tech that's right around the corner, there's really nothing new. Maybe the advanced color e-paper display that e-ink is making for digital signage that's coming out next year. Maybe by 2022 we might see that in an e-reader, but I mean, God, it's like whatever advances we made last year, we're losing it this year, and it's just not with e-readers too. It's like smartphones and tablets. A lot of people have exited the tablet business. There's fewer and fewer people that are consistently doing it on a year-by-year basis. Google has their overpriced tablets. Acer makes tablets. Microsoft Surface, which are probably the best tablets that you can kind of buy right now. Entry-level iPads and iPads just in general. But aside from those, there really isn't a lot of players left in the tablet arena. And when was the last time we actually saw an advancement in tablets? It's probably like 3 years ago when we started seeing more 2-in-1s where the screen doesn't come off of the laptop, but it does like full 360 degrees, could open one way and close like in another way, so you almost get that tablet experience. And some of them are running Android, some of them are running Windows. That's about the only thing that's kind of interesting changed, is the whole 2-in-1 phenomenon. Microsoft recently announced their Surface Go a few days ago. It's available for pre-order for like $399. This is really awesome for an entry-level device. It's certainly not brimming with specs, but I mean 1800 by 1200, 8 gig of RAM or 4 gig of RAM, 64 or 128 gigs of storage, dual core 7th generation Intel processor. There's some cool things going for it, but at the same time, you're gonna have to buy the keyboard. You're gonna have to buy the Surface Pen. You're looking at like $100 for the keyboard, another $100 for like the pen. So you go from $399 to $499 to $599. But then again, the Apple iPad's the same way. You're paying premium Apple prices, so you're paying more for their keyboard. But only certain iPad models are compatible with the Apple Pencil. So you have to kind of choose the right model. But in terms of just tablets in general, I mean, sure, Apple's releasing a new iOS OS this year. They're doing changes to iBooks. They're making some small changes underneath the hoods, but it's not really anything different. iPhones year on year, some small, medium, large is pretty well what they're doing, but we haven't gone bezel-less with smartphones in general. It's not like we have phones that have like a 10,000 milliamp battery that will last you a week. We have the same sort of batteries that we see on year and year. Slight improvement, but not much. Snapdragon processors, ARM processors. There really isn't any paradigm shifts there. It's small incremental updates year on year. So smartphones are like holding steady. Small advancements, but we're not really seeing anything crazy and new with smartphone technology, nor are we seeing like anything that's really after OLED in the future. I mean, do we want a 4K phone so we can watch like 4K videos on Netflix? Yes. Do I want a tablet that could watch 4K videos on Netflix or 4K videos, Blu-rays that I have at home and screen mirror them on my tablet? Yes. Will we see that? Probably not. And smartphones are the same way. We're not really seeing like 4K resolution on phones, so we're not really getting that next gen quality. We're not seeing really phones with like PC amounts of RAM, like 16 gigs, 32 gigs. There's some really high-end phones that are coming out this year that'll have like between 8 and 12 gigs of RAM, which is really nice, but the resolution's more or less the same. Screen technology is not really changing. I mean, the only thing that Apple really did last year that was interesting was the notch on the iPhone X, and that was an interesting looking phone, but I mean, $1,200, no thanks. And tablets, more or less like the same way, except, Apple and Microsoft sell the most tablets pretty well in the US, and then there's Amazon, which is generally like second or in third place in terms of selling tablets. But I mean, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. That's Amazon's entire business model. I actually wrote an interesting post on the blog the other day about what Amazon's doing in the tablet world, and they went from making really expensive tablets when they first started making them in 2011, incorporating features like Dolby audio, having like 4 speakers. The Fire HDX 8.9 is probably my favorite Amazon tablet that they ever did, but it was like, $379. It was pretty expensive. And around 2014, Amazon decided to experiment with lower cost tablets. So Fire HD 6 quad core processor, $99. 2015, Amazon did like the Fire 7 that was priced at $49. In 2016, they did the Fire 8 H8 with Alexa for $89, and then last year they did the second generation Fire 7 HD, which was like the same thing, like $49, like super cheap. In terms of the major players in the U.S. market, it's pretty well Apple, Amazon, Samsung, Huawei, Lenovo, and then others. So those are the people that are pretty well dominating the tablet market, quarter by quarter basis. And this is in the fourth quarter of 2017. So this was the holiday season where people were selling tablets more or less like crazy. But, I wish I could had 4K videos on my tablet. I wish there was something new than OLED that's going to be hitting the mainstream. Surface Go, cool. The price is right. Microsoft's not really doing anything different, but they are slowly refining their pen tech for like OneNote and things and making it kind of interesting. So if you look at smartphones, gradual improvement, tablets holding steady, e-readers in 2018, total step back. And it's a crying shame for e-readers because, I've been covering e-readers since like 2007. So the first year that the Amazon Kindle came out, knew that there was something to it. And I was right. I mean, 2013, 14 were like the glory years for e-readers, from like 2008 to like 2014. I mean, for ebooks, glory years; for e-readers, glory years. Constant innovation. E-Ink would like release new screen tech twice a year. I would always like go to Sid Display Week or CES, and there was always a new kind of e-paper tech. Bridgestone was making e-paper. Pixelqui was like making a name for themselves. Hanvon was like doing interesting things. There was a lot of cool companies that were involved in the space, and then slowly but surely all the fringe players died off. We have like less than 10 companies really that are consistently making new e-readers like on a yearly basis. it's some are bad, some are mid-level, some are like pretty expensive and high quality, like the small, medium, and large thing. It's small, it's cheap, it's cheerful, it's not very good, but I mean, at least we're not seeing an influx of like shitty Chinese like e-readers that people are buying. It's like you buy a Nook, you buy a Kobo, you buy a Kindle if you live in the US. If you live in Europe, it's a little bit wider open with like Storytel's releasing a new e-reader this year, their first e-reader, and it's the only e-reader to tap into their audiobook unlimited service that they have. So they have like an unlimited audiobook and ebook subscription service pretty well in Norway and Sweden and the Nordic countries for the most part. And you pay a monthly fee, and the C-Reader is only compatible with their unlimited service. So the modern equivalent that you guys might get is Scribd, that unlimited service. So it'd be like Scribd having a Scribd e-reader, and the only way that you could use the e-reader is if you have an active Scribd subscription. So you could like consume all the content on the e-reader, and if if your membership's canceled or whatever, your credit card expires, you just decide you don't want to pay anymore, it's like a paperweight. And the same goes with the Storytel. So Storytel is kind of doing a little something interesting. They're not really doing anything interesting with the e-reader tech that it sells, but in terms of the premise is pretty cool, and I think that they might be interesting to other companies like Playster, to Scribd. A Kindle Unlimited only e-reader would be kind of cool, and so on. So this is kind of how I feel about the e-reader industry right now. And you guys might have some differing opinions and whatnot. I come from it from love. I hate on a lot of things, but I love e-paper at the end of the day. I got a Sony Fez Watch U that I'm wearing right now. I got an e-ink bracelet. If you look at our studio, we have like 50 e-readers just like lying around. In every video that we do, there's like a wall of e-reader tech. I like what's happening with the Internet of Things, the digital signage aspect of like e-ink bus stops, solar powered like art gallery type of things. Construction signs. There's some interesting things happening in the e-paper and e-ink world, but fundamentally e-ink has really slowed down their innovation to a crawl, and this is sort of hampering e-reader technology, because without new e-paper, it's pretty well e-readers in 2017 look the same as 2016, they'll look the same as 2015, they'll look the same in 2018, will look the same in 2019. Text won't be any clearer, performance won't really be dramatically increased, because the Freescale's not really making any new processors, and e-reader companies are pretty well not willing to adopt Freescale like the IMX7 dual core. And I touched on that before, and let's talk about why aren't they doing it. Well, because e-readers for the longest time have been using IMX6 Solo Light 1 gigahertz processor. Almost every single e-reader has that, except for like Onyx e-readers that are using like cheap Chinese like quad core processors. But for the most part, people are using Freescale because it's compatible with e-ink Regal, and e-ink Regal is a controller thing underneath the e-ink card screen. It really helps with like refreshes, text transitions. When you change the font's instantly changed without having to like refresh the entire book, which is what we used to do. So IMX6 is really compatible with Regal, which is why almost every e-reader company that makes e-readers is using it. But if you want to use IMX7, it requires you changing the operating system, making tweaks to the operating system, making tweaks to the UI. You have to take advantage of that performance increase that you're getting with the dual core processor. And for the most part, e-reader companies are going to have to spend money to do that. And for smaller companies like Good e-reader, for like Icarus, Artitech, even Boyu in China to a lesser degree, they have some big contracts, but they're a pretty small company. They can't afford to, first of all, they don't even have the programmers on staff that can do it. They would have to freelance and outsource it, and it would cost like tens and $20,000 to do it. For a bigger company like Kobo, if they wanted to do it, they have a large engineering team. They can do it in house, but it would take like 6 to 7 months, I was told, for an established e-reader company. So this is what Freescale told me. They were like, IMX 7 dual cores for like high-end tablets, and they told me that. And when the Oasis 2 was the only e-reader that had it, I wasn't too surprised, because it's like almost $399. It's an expensive e-reader, and a lot of that cost is the dual core processor, among other things. But in terms of e-readers companies doing it, like the Aura 1 could have had it, but they didn't. It requires like half a year or more of Kobo revising their OS, everything from like the home screen to like the underlying like Linux code, diving in there, taking advantage of like the expanded processor type stuff. And a lot of companies just aren't willing to do it. They're like, we make a comfortable living selling e-readers every year. We don't really need to really do too much new stuff. The Comfortlight that Kobo did was interesting enough. Let's just make sure that every e-reader we have do it. Our bookstore's like fully stocked. Let's do that. Oh, we have an audiobook store that we released last year. Should we incorporate it into an e-reader? Nah, it's like easier not to do it. We'll just tell people to install the app and buy audiobooks on the app. Oh, wait. You just have an iPad? Oh, sorry, you can't do in-app transactions on the Kobo app for iPad because we don't want to pay Apple the royalty for each purchase. Oh, but what you could do is you could go to your PC, you can go to Kobo.com, you can make an account, you can like log in, attach your credit card, you can buy an audiobook, then you can kind of go back to your iPad and you can sync it, then you can get your audiobook. Isn't that easy, guys? Not really. Wouldn't it be easy like for you to just have like an Android phone and tablet and install the Kobo app, and then you could just like download and listen to audiobooks with that? Yeah, okay. So Kobo is limiting their entire audiobook audience to just people with Android, and they don't really care about their main business, which is e-readers. And they launched a huge audiobook platform, but e-readers are their business, but you can't listen to audiobooks on e-readers. It just seems silly to me, and it's just like such a simple thing for Kobo to do. Add a Bluetooth chip, add audiobooks to like their e-readers, push out a firmware update, you're good to go. Do they need a dual core processor for that? It would probably make sense if Amazon did it with like their Oasis 2. Kobo is the number 2 player in the e-ink arena. If they really want to get serious about audiobooks, they're going to have to do that. Will they do dual core? Will they do audiobooks on e-readers? Probably not. I wish they would, but I doubt that they will. And will they listen to this podcast and change their way of thinking? No. They have e-readers for sale through almost every major bookstore in the world. They sell them online. They make a comfortable living. They are owned by Rakuten, so they function as their own autonomous company, but they're not as young, as scrappy, and independent as they once were. Why take risks when it's easier not to take risks and just to do more of the same every year? It's not Kobo's responsibility to innovate or to do anything interesting in the e-reader arena. It's startups. It's young companies willing to take the risk, but at the same time, we have released our own e-reader. We did it like a few years ago. I think we rose like about 500,000 US on Indiegogo for our first device, and then we did like a follow-up one, and then we have like 2 more planned for 2018. Glow Light, Comfortlight, second generation 6.8, a new 7.8. We're not going to do any more large screen e-readers because it's just too expensive, but I know what it's like being a scrappy startup. I mean, we're an e-reader news site and we're doing hardware. And partly why we did it is because, well, we want to do something that no one else is doing. We noticed a gap in the market because we cover e-readers like on a daily basis. So we know where the gaps like exist. Let's fill the gaps. And then all of a sudden, all these other established brands started like doing exactly what we were doing, and they have deeper pockets so they could do it a bit better. But we've carved ourselves out a little niche. I'm happy with that, but at the same time, I've learned a lot about the supply chain, the costs involved in doing things, and scrappy startups. It's really hard to make it in the e-reader world, which is why everyone's sort of gone to like they've tried to go to smartphones, to tablets, but Internet of Things, starting their own Bitcoin exchanges, whatever is the sort of the buzzword of the day. E-readers, it costs a lot of money to develop them. It's if you want to just white label an existing design, it's like $300,000 or $400,000 just to place the hardware order. Spend another like 25,000. So basically like 400 grand or so in placing the order and customizing the firmware and getting the molds done and everything like that, and having them to your door. If you want your own design, if you want like something cool, like a dual screen like e-reader that opens and closes like a real book, both like frontlit displays. It's sort of, if you've seen the Guido, which is that dual screen 13.3 music reader, something like that, but smaller, for an ebook. And you open it up, text on one page, text on another page. It would make sense. Like hardcover books, dual pages, paperbacks, dual pages. If you were to even have like two 7.8 screens that open and close like a real book, that's like more text that fits there than a paperback, more text that fits on the screen than a hardcover. Advantages would be that you can increase the sizes of the fonts. So for people with vision problems, dyslexic people, people suffering from various ailments, they could just increase the size of the text. Oh wait, you just want to listen to an audiobook? No problem, just hit the audio button. To do something like that, hey, would a lot of people buy a cheap dual screen e-reader for like $3.99? Whereas they get just a single screen Kindle Oasis 2 for that amount? Probably people would. How much would it cost? Well, you would have to spend a minimum of about $1.1 million, and the MOQ goes up. If you want to do like a new design, you just can't order 100 units or 500 units. You have to order like 50 to 100,000 units. Comes out to about $1.2 to $1.3 million we were quoted. And if you're using two e-ink screens, probably about $1.4 to $1.5 million. For a young startup that wants to do something like that, you have to be wondering, do I have that money on hand? Likely not. Will I have to raise it? Yes. You go and raise money. Hey, I want to do this idea. Hey, it sounds kind of like the Kindle. Oh yeah, it's sort of like we're an alternative to the Kindle. Are you seriously thinking that you could compete against Amazon with their Kindle when they have like a 75% market share in the US and about like a 65% market share in Europe, a 95% market share in the UK? Yeah. Sorry, kid, we can't help you. And that's exactly how it's like played out. Who will take the VC financial risk on a company wanting to compete in the end of the day against, if they're a VC in the US, you're competing against Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kobo, and how are you going to do that? Well, we're thinking about doing a dual screen. It'll be most cheap to do it. We have like a history with hardware, so we do have a history of sales. What are your sales? Well, have you made millions? Not really. Have you made close to $1 million? Not really. Sorry, kid. So that's how it is. Now, can an existing company pivot and start making e-paper devices? Possibly. Intel showed off, I think it was the Tigra. I just kind of want to, I remember writing an article about this. They showed it off. It was something cool. It was a dual screen device where it was using okay, so here it is, the Intel Tiger Rapid. this is freaking cool. And this would be something I'd be totally into making. One side of the screen LCD, the other side of the screen e-ink, comes with a digital pen. You could write on the digital note, you can read an ebook, and it sort of reminded me of the Entourage Edge. A lot of people listening to the show probably weren't involved in e-readers back then, but the Entourage Edge was the first one to do it. They did it with a larger screen, a smaller screen, LCD on one side, e-paper on the other. That company was way ahead of its time, and so LCDs at that time were like TFT, or LCD, and it was like 800 by 600 was the best resolution that you were going to get for e-paper. It was like 167 ppi on a 6-inch screen. It was like literally terrible, but using new technologies, you could kind of really make it work. And so Intel's not going to make that. They're more or less looking for partners to like do it. But at the same time, if you're a partner that's like, okay, Intel has this product, we want to do like a white label version of it before like Lenovo, before like HTC, or like another company like Huawei could possibly do it. We want to do it first, but it's like it'll cost like to do this Intel one. It's probably the MOQ is probably like 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, 10. 15, 25 million dollars, probably about 25 million dollars to get this Intel Rapid things made, not counting this, counting the software development and everything like that. Who has that money? And then you kind of wonder why isn't there more people in the e-reader arena? It's kind of the reason why. If you want to do anything innovative, anything interesting, and something that hasn't been done before, you have to be prepared to invest like millions of dollars. And if you're going to do that, you have to do the market research. Will customers want this product? If you do market research, some people will say yes, some people will say no. What's the reach of e-readers these days? We did a poll. We've done actually numerous polls over the years, but it really comes down to it that the average person hangs onto their e-reader between 5 and 6 years before they upgrade to a new model. If you have a Kindle from like 4 or 5 years ago, it's fine. You don't have the built-in light. Maybe the text isn't the clearest. Maybe the resolution's not the best, but you don't really know what you're missing because it's the only device that reading ebooks that you've ever had. You get a modern e-reader, hey, it's light years better, but a lot of people aren't upgrading their e-reader year to year, or even every 2 or 3 years. They're doing it between 4 and 5 years, and this is why a lot of companies have exited the arena, because just the buying cycle on e-readers is so long compared to smartphones. If you have like a 4 or 5 year old smartphone, you have a brick, like legit. Tablets a little bit better. I was rocking like an iPad 9.7 for like 4 years, and it was fine. I play a lot of graphic intensive games, a lot of news research, a lot of Simpsons tapped out, just some casual games. But when the iPad Pro 9.7 came out, I'm like, all right, this has 4 speakers. I watch a lot of Netflix. Like when I'm chilling or podcasts, I listen to podcasts before I go to bed. And having 4 speakers on my iPads was a reason enough to upgrade. Trade in my old model. At the end of the day, I spent just $200. I spent another $100 on getting a pen, primarily just to review it for our YouTube channel. But I doodle here and there and stuff like on it. It's it's something that I kind of like. Gave me a reason to upgrade. E-readers, not a lot happens, like I've been saying. Last basically new processor that everyone used, 2011. We're using e-paper screens that are like 4 or 5 years old. I mean, it's really not a lot of reason for people to upgrade. A comfort, a warm light color temperature display, so you could like turn the bright white light off and have like more of a muted orangey color. Yeah, sure, that's something pretty cool. Most people are just happy with an e-reader, like at the Kindle Paperwhite 3 with a front light that came out like in 2015 or whatever. If you have that, you're fine. You don't really need to upgrade. So will you upgrade to a dual screen e-reader? How much does it cost? How much will I have to pay to like get this in your hands? Steve Jobs famously said that customers don't really know what they want until you put it in front of them. But that's coming from like a CEO of like a company that was making computers and has a lot of money since like the 80s. So they took the risk to make the iPhone. They took the risk to make the iPad and various other type of products. Apple was certainly really never the first. They weren't the first one to make a smartphone. They weren't the first one to make the tablet, but they were the first ones to really kind of bring the smartphone to the mainstream. The iPad tablets, they brought them to the mainstream. So yeah, I mean, I wish e-readers weren't taking a step back in 2018 like they were in 2017. Just like I wish I could write nothing but good news against Barnes and Noble, but they kind of forced me to just always be negative about it, and it kind of sucks because like I wish Barnes and Noble could turn things around. That was the theme on the last podcast about just everything with Nook executives teams, 4 COs in 5 years. I mean, it's a gong show there. If you want to hear it, you can kind of go to our website, goodereader.com, click on media, and then click on radio show. And you can listen to old podcasts. We're also on TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, Google Audiobooks. We're like on iTunes, so you just have to search for good space e-reader. And you'll find it. If you just type in Good e-reader one word, we should pop up either way. You'll see a proverbial big E logo. So you can listen to us on the podcasting network of your choice. If you are already listening to us on not on our website, but another network, welcome. Good e-reader is the definitive news source on all things e-readers, e-books, digital publishing, and audiobooks. Every day we publish between 4 and 5 different articles. We have a vibrant YouTube channel where we post a video a day since around 2009. It was established. Millions of views a month. It's we're doing pretty well with our YouTube channel, and our video production quality is really increase like in the last year or so. We built a new studio. We have new lighting. We went away from the old studio lights to a really warmer LCD setup. We have a floodlight on the roof now. We have our whole when I do sort of the vlog style news segments, you notice that the backgrounds totally changed. We have new props, new things to kind of liven it up, and we got a 4K camera and got rid of kind of our cheaper camcorder that we were using over the years. So our production level dramatically increased. So if you've never seen any of our videos before, youtube.com/goodereader, all one word. You can check that out, and you can also look at it by going to our website, goodereader.com, and just clicking on videos, and it'll bring you to it. So thanks for listening, everyone. My name is Michael. You've been listening to the Good e-reader radio show, and everybody take care.